Dr. Elias Marlowe moved carefully through the twisting tunnels of the Arcadia 9 cave network. His headlamp cut a narrow path through the damp darkness, illuminating walls streaked with pale mineral veins. Each footstep echoed softly, and the U-by air smelled of cold stone and ancient dust. Elias paused often to record samples and check his portable scanners. These caves lay beyond any mapped route, and rumors said strange creatures sometimes made nests here. Yet nothing in his training prepared him for what he would find deeper inside the earth. A faint, ragged sound led Elias around a sharp bend. There, curled against the jagged rock floor, lay a figure unlike any he had seen. An alien woman, her skin a soft lavender hue, lay still with one arm splayed awkwardly. She wore no clothing in any human sense, but scales formed delicate patterns across her shoulders and neck like living art. Elias's heart raced as he knelt beside her, careful not to startle her further. He laid a gentle hand on her shoulder and whispered, "Can you hear me?" She did not open her eyes, but a slow breath trembled through her chest. Elias noticed a deep abrasion across her rib cage and a thin trickle of dark fluid staining the cave floor. His mind flashed through emergency protocols. He first checked for a pulse, steady but weak. He then rummaged in his med kit for wound saline and sterile dressings. As he worked, he spoke softly, describing each step so she would know she was not alone. The cave's silence pressed in around them, broken only by Elias's calm voice and the soft hiss of his scanner. By the flicker of his lamp, Elias cleaned the alien wound. He poured saline solution with careful precision, watching the gash close slightly under the antiseptic spray. The Earth woman's eyes fluttered open, revealing pools of iridescent color that shone like distant galaxies. Her gaze met his, and, in that instant, Elias felt a strange tug in his mind, an echo of emotion that was not his own. He blinked, startled, but the feeling faded. Unsure whether it was real or fatigue, he focused on wrapping her torso with clean bandages and securing them snugly. Next, Elias activated his handheld bioscanner. Soft lights danced across its small screen as it searched for familiar patterns. It emitted a steady beep, then a slow warble. "Unknown life form," the scanner read. Elias frowned. Every record he knew listed terrestrial mammals, simple reptiles, and a few hardy insects in those caves, but nothing like her. He tapped his radio, voice firm. "Base, this is Marlowe. I've found an unidentified sentient being in the northern cavern. She's alive but injured. Request immediate medical support." Silence crackled over the channel. Finally, a calm reply. "Understood, Marlowe. We'll dispatch a hover unit in 90 minutes. Secure the subject until then." Elias let out a breath. 90 minutes was far too long in this wild place. He glanced around the cave, knowing that nocturnal predators often roamed these tunnels. Sharp claws and hungry eyes could be moments away. Protecting her here would be nearly impossible, if they came. He gently lifted the Earth woman into his arms, mindful of her fragile state. Her weight was light, almost ethereal, and she lay against his chest as though seeking warmth. Elias stood and moved back toward the tunnel entrance, every muscle tense. He scanned the darkness beyond his light's reach, imagining how easily danger could spring from the unseen. Once he paused under a dripping stalactite, feeling water bead on his brow. He whispered to her, "I'll keep you safe. I promise you that." Step by careful step, Elias carried her toward a small alcove he knew would give better cover. There he built a rough barricade from fallen stones and debris. He placed her on a bed of spare blankets and retrieved a thermal blanket from his pack. Wrapping it around her shoulders, he watched her chest rise and fall in restful rhythm. He stayed close, checking her bandages and monitoring her breathing. Every time she stirred, he offered soft words of reassurance, guessing at her confusion in this strange place. As minutes stretched on, Elias's mind raced with questions. Who was she? Why was she here? What conflict had driven her into this dark cave? He wondered if the galaxy beyond Arcadia 9 had found new allies or new enemies, but for now, those questions would have to wait. His duty lay in one simple task: Keep her alive. Outside, the wind howled as night fell fully over the world above. Inside, Elias sat by the alien's side, unwavering in his vigil, determined to give her a chance to tell her story. Dr. Elias Marlowe eased the Urath woman onto a narrow biobed inside the Arcadia Station infirmary. The sterile lights glowed softly above them, and the faint hum of life support machines filled the air. Nurses in white uniforms moved quietly around, but none dared approach the injured alien. Elias hung back, watching every slow rise and fall of her chest. He felt relief that they had made it safely from the cave, but his mind raced with new questions. Who was she? And why had she risked her life on this lonely world? As dawn broke outside, Lieutenant Kara Mendez arrived with a portable neuroscanner. She set it carefully beside the biobed, while Elias explained what he had found. She is clearly sapient, he said, gesturing to the Urath's smooth lavender skin and patterned scales. I believe she can think, feel, and perhaps even communicate, if we find the right method. Kara nodded, her expression serious. We'll scan for any brain activity patterns. If she is hive-linked, maybe we can tune into her thoughts. Elias placed the scanner's soft, flexible probes near the Urath's temple. The machine hissed as it warmed up, then settled into a steady beep. On its small screen, waves of data pulsed in grass Kara worked. Elias spoke softly to the Urath woman. He described the station's quiet corridors, the sound of shuttle engines, and the face of Lieutenant Mendez, who watched in silence. He talked about the sun rising above Arcadia 9, painting the sky with pale gold. After a few minutes, he felt a light tremor in his own head, like a gentle echo at the edge of his consciousness. He blinked, uncertain if it came from him or from her. He closed his eyes. Suddenly, he stood in a vast moonlit plain under violet skies. Strange plants with glowing petals swayed in a cold breeze. At the horizon, tall crystalline towers rose against two moons. A soft voice, like a whisper inside his mind, spoke without words, images of warships burning, of endless rows of fallen bodies, of a dark figure holding a shining blade. Elias's heart pounded as fear washed over him. Then the vision shifted to a simple scene, the Urath woman, now healthy, smiling at him with those galaxy-bright eyes. Elias gasped and opened his eyes. Kara reached out to steady him. What did you see? She asked quietly. Elias shook his head, still dazed. I think she showed me her memories, he said. Kara exchanged a look with him. This confirms it, she whispered. Telepathy, strong, direct. We're dealing with a highly advanced mind. Over the next hours, Elias and Kara took turns watching the scanner and comforting their patient. Every few hours, Elias would return to the vision world where the Urath had lived, her home planet Orathia. He saw lush violet forests, iridescent rivers, and vast cities that floated above the ground. He felt her joy at simple moments, sunrise shared with her sister, laughter over a communal meal, the pride of serving as a guardian of her people. But each time the shadows returned, starships tearing through her sky, the wail of alarms, and her own terrified flight into a shuttle that plunged her into the black void of space. By evening, Elias felt both honored and burdened by the gift of her memories. He sat by her side as she stirred awake. Her eyes opened slowly and she looked at him, blinking in the harsh white light. Elias smiled gently. You're safe, he said aloud, hoping she heard both his voice and his mind. She stared at him for a long moment, then reached out. Her fingers brushed his wrist and he felt warmth spread through him. In that touch he heard her wordless gratitude. Kara watched from the doorway. We'll need to keep her here until she recovers, she said to Elias. But the station command is worried. They want answers, and they want them fast. Elias nodded. I understand, he replied. But first, I must earn her trust. She risked everything for me. I owe her the chance to speak her truth. Late that night, Elias returned alone to the infirmary. He found the Urath woman sitting up, gazing out the window at the distant stars. He approached quietly and offered her a simple meal of nutrient paste and fresh water. She accepted with careful grace. As she ate, Elias sat across from her. He held up a small hollow tablet and drew a simple stick figure of himself. Then he drew another figure beside it, her with curved lines for scales. He tapped himself, then her, and pointed to the stars beyond the window. The Urath watched him without blinking. Then she lifted a hand and traced a line from the window to the stars. Elias's heart leapt. She was trying to speak. He mimed a shuttle, drew wings for flight, and pointed at her wounds. She nodded slowly, her eyes glowing with effort. Elias realized that the next step would test both his patience and his courage, but he was ready. Together, they would unlock the Urath enigma and perhaps change the fate of both their worlds. Dr. Elias Marlowe crouched beside the biobed as red warning lights pulsed through the infirmary. An alarm bell rang out in harsh tones echoing against sterile walls. He glanced at Leah, the Urath woman, who stirred under white sheets. Beyond the reinforced doors, automated locks slid shut with heavy thuds. Security officers shouted orders into radios. Elias's heart beat fast. News had come that raiders hired by the warlord were closing in on Arcadia Station. If they arrived before help reached him, Leah would be in grave danger. He rose and tapped the emergency panel beside the door. Within seconds, the infirmary doors sealed tight. A voice over the station. Intercom barked instructions. All non-essential personnel evacuate to lower levels. Raiders have breached perimeter defenses. Elias exchanged a tense look with Lieutenant Kara Mendez, who stood by the doorway. Kara's face was grim, but determined. "We can't wait for the hover unit," Elias said softly. "They'll be here in minutes, not hours. We have to move now." Kara nodded. "I'll get the mechanics. Meet you at the cargo bay." Elias gathered his med kit and motioned to Leah. Tamsin and Rourke, the station's two most skilled mechanics, met them outside the locked infirmary. Tamsin's fingers flew across a handheld console as she hacked the security door. Rourke steadied Leah's stretcher, his strong arm shielding her from curious glances. Elias helped lift Leah gently, mindful of her healing wounds. The four of them slipped down a dim hallway past blinking consoles and half-lit hydroponic beds. Every sound felt amplified, the distant thrum of raider engines, the rumble of security bots sealing off corridors. The station they had called home now felt like a trap. They reached a narrow maintenance shaft marked cargo access. Rourke pried open a heavy grate with a crowbar. The smell of oil and old metal greeted them. Tamsin held a small flare at arm's length, casting dancing shadows on the curved walls. "This will take us under the station," she whispered. "We can surface near the loading docks." Elias breathed in the cool, stale air. He steadied Leah's stretcher as they stepped into the tight tunnel. The shaft was just wide enough for 4 people side by side. They moved single file. Halfway through the shaft, a grating above them clattered. Elias froze. He signaled the others, and they pressed against the wall. Dust drifted down as footsteps, heavy, deliberate, passed overhead. Rourke tightened his grip on Leah's stretcher. Tamsin swallowed but held the flare higher, revealing a flicker of her resolve. Elias's mind raced. He tapped his chest and then pointed at Leah's head, silently urging her to prepare. Leah's eyes glowed faintly beneath her eyelids. A moment later, the raider drones arrived in force at the far end of the tunnel. Security bots howled as they engaged the invaders. Pulses of blue energy lit the shaft. Elias set down the stretcher and crouched. "Stay close," he hissed. Leah's hands hovered over the nearest bot. A soft hum grew in her mind, and the machine's sensors faltered. It collapsed in a shower of sparks. Elias helped Rourke and Tamsin push the stretcher past the downed bot. More bots followed, their metal feet screeching. But Leah's telekinetic aura flared like a living shield. They burst out of the maintenance shaft into the undercity tunnels. Thick smog rolled through narrow alleys lit by flickering neon signs. Dripping pipes hissed acidic steam onto rusted walkways. Elias tightened his jacket around Leah, protecting her from the harsh air. Tamsin led the way, her flare bobbing as they dodged piles of discarded cargo crates. Every corner seemed to hide a new hazard: pools of oily water, sharp metal shards, overturned carts. But Elias kept his focus on Leah. Each bump in the stretcher sent a tremor through her body that he tried to soften. From above, a distant roar signaled raider hovercraft cruising the main tunnel. Bright searchlights swept the ground below. Elias pressed Leah's hand and pointed to a narrow side passage. Rourke lifted a loose grate and helped them slip inside. In the tight crawl space, the roar grew fainter. Leah's breathing slowed, and her color returned. Elias dared to hope they might escape. He looked at Tamsin, who gave a quick nod. The path ahead sloped upward. After nearly 10 minutes of slow, tense crawling, they saw daylight through a broken grate. Elias endeavored to lift the stretcher himself, but Rourke offered stronger arms. Together they hoisted Leah into a small hover cart waiting behind a stack of cargo. Tamsin jumped in the driver's seat and punched the ignition. The cart shuddered and rose a few feet off the ground. Ahead lay the old cargo bay doors, now cracked and scorched from raider fire. Elias guided the stretcher to the door's edge. The doors opened on a dusty plain outside the station. In the orange dusk, the horizon stretched out in rolling dunes. Raiders hovered on patrol above, but they were too high to open fire accurately. Tamsin navigated the cart over uneven ground. Elias held Leah's hand, watching her chest rise evenly. "Almost there," he whispered. The cargo bay's hidden escape shuttle lay half buried under sand and metal. Its hatch gleamed with fresh paint, proof that Elias had prepared this plan in case of worse need. As they neared the shuttle, a sudden burst of light spliced the air. 2 raider fighters dipped low, scanning the ground. Elias's pulse hammered. Tamsin floored the accelerator. The cart lunged forward across the desert floor. Sand sprayed behind them in golden clouds. Leah's eyes opened, and she met Elias's gaze. In that look, he saw both fear and determination. The cart slammed into the shuttle ramp. Rourke threw the hatch open. Inside, the shuttle's cockpit hummed with power. Elias lifted Leah as Tamsin pulled her inside. He strapped her to a padded bench. Rourke secured the door. Outside, the raider fighters banked sharply, ready to fire. Elias slammed the launch control. The shuttle's engines roared to life. It lifted off the ground, climbing steeply into the sky. Through the front window, Elias watched the desert shrink below and the raiders fade behind them. He sat beside Leah and held her hand. Around them, the shuttle's lights blinked steadily. For a moment, silence filled the cabin. Elias looked at Leah's calm face and whispered, "You are safe now." Leah closed her eyes, and Elias felt a soft pulse of gratitude through her mind. He allowed himself a shaky smile. The journey was far from over, but for now they had escaped. And in that escape lay a fragile hope for both their kinds. Dr. Elias Marlowe paced the shuttle's narrow cabin as the stars slipped past the viewport. Leah, the Earth woman, lay resting on the padded bench. Her breathing was steady, but Elias could see the tension in her slender shoulders. They had escaped the raiders, but their journey was far from over. According to Leah's fragmented memories, the Vault of Ancients lay hidden beneath the ice caps of Arcadia 9, a repository of Urath secrets that might help free her people from war's grip. Elias set his jaw. He would do whatever it took to guide her there. Outside, the shuttle re-entered Arcadia 9's atmosphere with a soft roar. The cabin lights flickered as they passed through swirling clouds of orange dust. Elias gripped the armrest. "We'll land near the ice fields," he told Leah. She opened her galaxy-bright eyes and nodded. Her eyes held gratitude, but also pain. Elias remembered the vision she had shared, images of her home world burning under enemy fire. He wished he could ease her anguish, but all he could offer was his presence and his promise. The shuttle touched down on a jagged plain at the edge of a frozen sea. Elias guided Leah out of the hatch, wrapping her in an insulated cloak he had found in the cargo hold. The wind bit at his face. Sharp ice crystals stung any exposed skin. He helped Leah onto a supply rover parked nearby, its tracks half buried in hardened snow. He keyed the ignition. The engine growled, and the rover lurched forward onto the cracked ice. For hours they drove in silence. White plains stretched to the horizon, broken only by distant blue ridges of ice. The sky above was a pale silver, and at times the sun peeked, through low clouds casting long shadows across the frozen landscape. Leah sat beside Elias, her hands folded in her lap. Elias studied the faint glow beneath her scales, an echo of her telepathic gift. He wondered if she was drawing strength from the landscape, or if the journey stirred painful memories. Suddenly, the rover's engine sputtered. Elias frowned and glanced at the dashboard. Fuel levels were lower than he had estimated. "We need to find shelter soon," he said. Leah looked out at the featureless plain, then closed her eyes. Elias watched her, concerned. She seemed to concentrate, as if scanning the wind with her mind. He waited, clutching the steering wheel. After a moment, Leah's eyes opened and she pointed ahead with delicate fingers. Elias turned the rover toward a distant ridge of ice. As they approached, he could make out the entrance to a cavern partially hidden by drifts. Leah nodded and spoke, in a soft voice that Elias felt more than heard. A single word like vault. Relief warmed his chest. He drove the rover into the shallow cave and shut off the engine. The wind outside died to a distant howl. They unloaded their supplies, spare fuel cells, thermal blankets, and rations. Leah's eyes flicked with relief as she looked at the cavern's dark mouth. Elias held his headlamp steady. "I'll go first," he said. "We'll set markers so we can find our way back." Leah stood close behind him. Her steps were graceful, but cautious, as if she feared the very air might betray her. The tunnel sloped downward and the air grew colder and more still. Elias's breath fogged in front of him. He paused to mark the walls with small glow sticks. Leah mimicked his actions, placing her own markers that pulsed with faint luminescence. They worked side by side in silent harmony. With each step, the walls changed from rough ice to smoother surfaces etched with patterns, ancient designs that reminded Elias of the scales on Leah's neck. At the tunnel's end, they entered a vast chamber lit by crystalline formations, jutting from floor and ceiling. The crystals glowed with soft blue light, casting kaleidoscopic reflections across the walls. In the center stood a console carved from the same material, its surface covered in Urath glyphs. Elias approached slowly, heart pounding. Leah reached out, her fingers tracing the symbols. Then the console sprang to life, and a holographic map flickered into view. The map showed Arcadia 9 from orbit, the ice cap marked with a red symbol. Beneath the red mark pulsed a circle that grew brighter as Leah's hand hovered over it. Elias studied the projection. "This must be the vault." "Location," he said. Leah nodded, her eyes bright with hope. She pressed another glyph, and the projection shifted to show a cross-section of the ice, revealing a hidden chamber deep below. Elias tapped the console, and a low hum filled the chamber. One of the crystals detached itself and floated upward, glowing more intensely. The chamber's walls began to shift, revealing a narrow shaft that sloped deeper into the frozen earth. Elias felt excitement and a hint of fear. They had found the true entrance, but what awaited them below? He looked at Leah. Her slender form was illuminated by the crystal light, and for a moment she seemed both fragile and powerful. Elias offered his hand. She placed her hand in his. Together they stepped into the shaft. The descent was steep and icy. Elias tested each foothold before moving, and Leah followed closely, her telekinetic sense guiding her path. Tens of meters down, the air grew warmer and smelled faintly of ozone. Elias felt a thrill. They were close. The shaft opened into a smaller chamber, where a single door of translucent crystal waited. Urath symbols glowed on its surface. Leah placed both hands on the door. She closed her eyes and murmured in her mind. The door responded, its surface rippling like water. Then it slid open silently, revealing a final chamber. Elias stepped inside and gasped. Rows of cylindrical pods lined the walls, each filled with shimmering liquid and floating Urath artifacts, tools, weapons, scrolls of light. At the chamber's center lay a glowing sphere that pulsed gently with life. Leah approached the sphere and knelt. Elias watched as her eyes filled with tears. He did not know what her people would use from the vault, but he knew this moment would change history. He stood by her side, ready to protect her and share in her victory. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, they had found the hope of a lost world and the promise of a new future. Dr. Elias Marlowe stepped into the vault's central chamber and let his eyes sweep across the rows of crystalline pods. Each pod glowed with pale light, and within floated artifacts of Urath design. Slender tools built from living metal, scroll-like data crystals, and a few devices that hummed softly with power. At the center, the pulsing sphere beckoned him. Leah, the Urath woman, knelt before it, her fingers brushing the sphere's smooth surface. Elias approached quietly and crouched beside her. "What is this place?" he whispered. Leah pressed her forehead to the sphere and closed her eyes. In that moment, Elias saw the images again. Orathia's shining towers, its flowing rivers of light, and the peaceful gatherings of her people under lavender skies. Then the vision changed, showing the first raider ships breaching Urath's defenses like falling meteors. Leah's shoulder trembled, but she drew in a steadying breath. After a long silence, Leah withdrew her hand. Her galaxy-bright eyes met his. In her mind, Elias heard the telepathic echo of her words. "The vault holds our history. It holds solutions." She rose and turned to a nearby console etched with swirling glyphs. Elias stood, heart pounding. Leah tapped a symbol that glowed a soft teal. The console lit up, displaying lines of Urath script. Elias recognized the patterns as data files. Leah pointed to the largest cluster of files and pressed again. A holographic archive erupted into the air, showing scenes of old Urathia, its council chambers, its scientists collaborating with neighboring worlds, and its warriors who served as peacekeepers rather than conquerors. Elias watched, awed. "Your people. You were guardians," he said softly. Leah nodded. She traced another symbol, and the hologram shifted to darker images. Endless waves of raider ships, cities aflame under violet skies, and refugees fleeing to the stars. Elias's chest tightened. "The warlord," he murmured. Leah pressed a third glyph. The archive zoomed in on a single figure, an Urath in black armor holding a high-energy blade. The figure's face was hidden, but the posture was proud and cruel. Beneath the image, text scrolled in Urath script. Leah's voice, heard in his mind, translated. "Jalthor, once our leader. He betrayed us. He usurped power and led the assault that shattered our world." Elias felt a surge of anger for the Urath's suffering. "There must be a way to stop him," he said. Leah's eyes shone with resolve. She tapped the console again, and a new section opened, a set of blueprints. Elias recognized their shape. Instantly, it was the terraforming engine schematics he had heard rumors about, buried deep beneath Arcadia 9's polar ice. He leaned closer to study the plans. "This engine, it can rework a planet's atmosphere and crust," he said. "If we activate it here, we could build a sanctuary world for your people." Leah's hand rose, and in his mind he heard, "Yes, we can restore Orathia, or make new worlds." She paused, then added a note of warning. "But to power it, we need the vault's core crystal. It lies in the deepest chamber." Elias nodded. "Then we'll go deeper." He braced himself as Leah guided him past the console to a sturdier door, carved from transparent crystal. The door rippled at her touch and slid aside. Beyond lay a narrow corridor illuminated by veins of glowing ice. The walls pulsed with energy, and Elias felt a faint hum beneath his feet. They followed the corridor down a gentle slope until they came to an oval chamber. In its center stood a massive crystal, taller than Elias and shining with inner light. The crystal floated above a pedestal of sculpted ice. Surrounding it were Urath symbols that pulsed in rhythm with the crystal's glow. Leah approached reverently. Elias watched as she closed her eyes and placed both hands on the crystal's surface. In his mind, he felt a surge of power, like standing at the edge of a storm. The crystal responded to her touch, its glow intensifying until the chamber was bathed in pure light. Elias felt warmth flood his body, and he saw visions of possibility. Lush planets rising from barren rocks, cities growing from seeds of light, and Urath ships guided home by the crystal's beacon. After a long moment, Leah withdrew her hands. The light dimmed to a steady pulse. She opened her eyes and turned to Elias. This crystal is the heart of the vault. It powers our greatest creations. With it, we can build new worlds. Elias stepped closer. But Jalthor will come for. He will not let his power slip away. Leah's gaze hardened. Then we must use it first. She reached out and took his hand. Elias felt her strength and determination flow through him. I will stand by you, he said. Together, they made their way back to the console. Leah restored the holographic schematics for the terraforming engine. Elias studied the technical notes, realizing the complexity of what lay ahead. He would need to coordinate human engineering teams with Urath psychic networks. He would need supplies, fuel, and a secure site. And they had little time before the warlord's raiders discovered the vault's location. Leah saw the concern in his eyes. In his mind, she offered reassurance. We have hope, and hope is our greatest weapon. Elias smiled and squeezed her hand. He felt renewed purpose. They carried the crystal out of the chamber and cradled it between them as they returned through the icy corridors. Back in the vault's main hall, Elias placed the crystal carefully into a protective case. Leah secured the vault's doors behind them. The chamber grew still once more, the artifact safe for now. Elias looked at Leah and spoke aloud, voice confident. We know what we must do. We will build a safe world, for you, and for all who follow. Leah's eyes glowed with gratitude, and Elias felt the bond between them deepen. Beyond the vault, Arcadia 9's winds roared, but inside they had unlocked the secrets to change a galaxy. The turning tide of war awaited them, and with the vault's power they would shape the future. Dr. Elias Marlowe stood at the edge of the hidden facility's control room, watching the sleek lines of the terraforming engine glow beneath the dome of reinforced glass. Around him, a team of human engineers and station mechanics worked alongside Urath technicians, placing power conduits and calibrating energy regulators. The air crackled with nervous excitement. After weeks of planning, they were ready to turn the tide. Lieutenant Cara Mendez joined Elias at the central console. Her face was determined but kind. All systems check out, she reported. We've routed power from the station's fusion core through the crystal's stabilizer and into the engine's heart. Elias nodded. Then let's begin, he said. Leah, the Urath woman whose secret name meant hope in her language, floated forward. Her lavender skin glowed softly under the bright lamps. She carried the vault's core crystal carefully in both hands. The humans watched in awe as she approached the engine's inlet port. With a gentle motion, she placed the crystal into its slot. A low hum grew and then deepened into a steady pulse, as if the machine itself had taken a breath. Elias activated the main switch. A surge of light raced along the conduits and into the engine's many chambers. The dome's glass shimmered as energy flowed through the crystal. Outside the facility, Arcadia 9's sky flickered with teal and violet, colors never seen on this world before. The engine's primary turbines began to turn, and a soft vibration ran under everyone's feet. This is it, Elias whispered, feeling a tingle of power in his fingertips. We're changing a planet. Suddenly, the warning klaxon blared. Red lights flashed along the corridors. Kara's eyes snapped to the security monitors. They're here, she said. On the screens, raider hovercraft and attack drones descended toward the facility's perimeter. Elias drew a steady breath. He turned to Leah. Stay here and guard the crystal. We will handle the defense. Leah's eyes glowed with fierce resolve. She simply nodded, then drifted to the crystal's side, forming a telekinetic barrier around it. Elias and Kara hurried into the armory bay, joining a small squad of human soldiers and Urath guardians. Each Urath carried a lightweight energy staff, their patterned scales gleaming under their armor. Elias picked up a plasma rifle, unfamiliar weight but comforting in his hands. He crouched beside Rourke, the station mechanic who had saved Leah's life in the caves. Rourke pumped a fist. "Let them come," he said. Moments later, the facility's outer doors burst open. Raider drones swarmed in like angry hornets, firing red beams that scorched the metal floor. Elias and the squad fired back, the plasma bolts snapping through the air in bright arcs. Leah's barrier shimmered as it absorbed incoming fire with a soft ripple. Each shot that struck her shield sent tiny sparks dancing across the glass dome. The Urath guardians moved with grace, their staffs casting concentric rings of force that tossed drones aside like pebbles. One guardian, Kyle, stepped forward and struck the ground with his staff. A shockwave erupted, knocking 2 Raider soldiers off their feet. The humans cheered, then returned to the fight with renewed vigor. Elias sprinted down the corridor, covering Kara as she moved deeper into the facility's guts to reset a damaged power conduit. He leaned around a bend and saw 3 Raider soldiers kicking at a control panel. He took careful aim and fired. His bolt struck the nearest one in the shoulder, and the Raider dropped his weapon, collapsing to the floor. Elias could see the fear in the Raider's eyes. He did not fire again. Kara slid in beside him, re-engaging the conduit. Sparks flew and the lights flickered. She twisted the final valve, and the power grid hummed back to full strength. "Done," she called. Elias covered her as they retreated. Together they reached the central chamber where Leah's barrier now pulsed brighter than ever. The engine's turbines spun faster, and the hum deepened into a pure tone that filled every corridor. With a final roar, the engine released a wave of teal energy into the sky. Outside, Arcadia 9's atmosphere glowed as the terraforming process began. Clouds swirled in new patterns, drawing in dust and toxins and transforming them into clean air. Plants in the nearby greenhouses responded almost instantly, their leaves brightening in the soft light. The Raiders paused, their weapons lowering as they watched the sky change. Confusion rippled through their ranks. Seizing the moment, the Urath guardians surged forward, pushing the invaders back through the corridors. Elias and Kara joined the charge, driving the Raiders toward the exit. At the perimeter, the remaining Raider hovercraft lifted off prematurely, engines sputtering. One by one, they fled before the growing storm. The Raider soldiers surrendered or retreated, and the red warning lights faded. Elias exhaled a breath he had not realized he was holding. He looked up at Leah, who stood at the crystal's side, her hands glowing with lingering power. "You did it," he said softly. Leah's eyes shone. In his mind, he heard her simple thought. "We did it together." Outside the dome, the new sky continued to shift. Soft wind carried the scent of fresh rain mixing with the crisp cold. Elias stepped out onto the observation platform and watched as the horizon glowed with promise. Below him, colonists gathered, cheering and embracing. He felt Leah's hand on his arm. She had followed him out. He turned and smiled. Together they watched a new world waking up, one that would shelter the Urath and their human allies alike. The turning tide of war was won not by destruction, but by hope, unity, and trust between 2 species. And as the long process of healing began across Arcadia 9, Elias knew this victory was only the first step toward building a brighter future. Dr. Elias Marlowe stood beside Leah on the observation deck as Arcadia 9's new dawn spread across the sky. The horizon glowed in soft teal and lavender hues. Below them, colonists and Urath settlers worked side by side, planting saplings in the thawing soil. The air smelled fresh, touched by gentle rains that the terraforming engine summoned. Elias felt a deep sense of pride and relief. Together with Leah, he had turned a dying world into a sanctuary. Leah, her lavender scales shining in the morning light, released a soft, telekinetic pulse. The pulse carried images of gratitude, peaceful homes, and laughter under olive-green trees. Elias held her hand, sensing her joy. "You have given your people a future," he said softly. Leah's galaxy-bright eyes met his. In her mind he heard a clear thought. "And you have given me hope." Their journey had not only saved a planet, it had united two species in trust and cooperation. News of Arcadia 9's transformation spread quickly through human and Earth networks. Ambassadors from neighboring colonies arrived to witness the rebirth and learn from Leah's people. Elias, once a lone xenobiologist, found himself at the heart of a new alliance. Early that afternoon, a small ceremony gathered station leaders, colonists, and Urath elders around a raised platform in the central plaza. Elias and Leah stood before the crowd. Commander Rohit Singh, head of Arcadia Station, stepped forward. He bowed slightly to Leah and then to Elias. "Today, we honor the courage and unity of two worlds," he said, voice carrying across the plaza. "Dr. Elias Marlowe saved Leah's life. Leah, in turn, saved our world. Their partnership has shown us that hope and friendship can conquer any darkness." The crowd cheered, voices rising in celebration. Elias felt warmth flood through him. Leah stepped forward and addressed the assembly in careful English, her voice clear and melodic. "My people owe you a great debt," she said. "We Urath have suffered loss and betrayal, but here on Arcadia 9, we have found new family among humans." Elias watched as Leah produced a small, glowing object cradled in a delicate crystal shell. The object was no larger than his palm, yet it pulsed with light and potential. The assembly fell silent. Commander Singh nodded for Leah to speak. She held the crystal aloft. "This is the quantum seed," Leah explained. "It contains the essence of Earth terraforming technology. With it, a new world can be born. The seed will grow on the right planet, creating an environment where life can flourish. It is our greatest gift to humanity, and my reward for Elias's courage and kindness." Elias's breath caught. He knelt as Leah approached and placed the quantum seed in his hands. He felt its gentle pulse like a heartbeat. Colors shifted beneath its surface, swirls of teal, violet, and gold. Leah's telepathic voice touched his mind. "Plant this on a world in need, and it will transform barren land into a living garden. This gift is for all." Tears filled Elias's eyes. He looked around at the smiling faces, the humans who had cheered his name, the Urath who had learned to trust him, and Leah, whose bond with him had become deeper than words. He rose and spoke to the assembly, voice steady with emotion. "I accept this seed not for myself, but for all who dream of new beginnings. Together we will carry its power to worlds that need hope." Another cheer rose, more joyful than before. Leah stepped beside Elias and placed a hand on his shoulder. In that touch, he felt her pride and love. The quantum seed glowed brighter, as if celebrating the unity of their hearts. As the sun reached its zenith, Elias and Leah walked through the plaza, greeting colonists and Urath alike. Children, both human and Urath, ran at their feet, laughing as they chased glowing drones that scattered light like fireflies. Engineers discussed future expeditions, eager to test the quantum seed on distant worlds. Cultural ambassadors exchanged ideas for shared art, music, and healing practices. Late in the day, Elias returned to the shuttle bay where their old escape vessel stood. Leah followed, her eyes bright with curiosity. He opened a storage locker and carefully placed the quantum seed inside a protective case. He secured it to the shuttle's navigation console. "Someday soon," he said, "we will choose a world together." Leah nodded, anticipation shining in her gaze. They climbed into the cockpit. Elias ran a final check on the seed's containment field, ensuring its delicate energies remained stable. Leah sat beside him, her fingers brushing the case. The cockpit, lights dimmed as the shuttle powered up. Beyond the reinforced glass, the terraformed landscape stretched out in gentle hills and budding forests. Elias reached for Leah's hand. "Ready for our next journey?" he asked. Leah smiled, her telepathic warmth filling him with confidence. "With you," she thought, I am ready for any adventure. The shuttle's engines roared to life. As they lifted off, Elias looked down at Arcadia 9 one last time. The world they had saved glowed like a jewel in the void. Beyond it lay countless planets waiting for the Quantum Seed's gift.